Hello and welcome to the Creators Guild podcast. I'm Chris Howell and with me,
Jared Lovelady.
And we are here to talk about all things creative. Today, we are going to dive right into another Learning with Liz. Liz Verity is going to join us on set, and we are going to talk about some creative stuff that she has to share with us. So, right to Liz. Okay, so we are here once again with Liz Verity. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me again. It's always
Good
fun.
to have you back.
Yep.
How are things going for you these days?
Good. Slow. I am still working on editing.
That's a never-ending process.
It is. And generally, I like it, but right now it's just really tough because I'm trying to kill, every single darling possible in my book.
Nice.
So, yeah, it's a lot of murder, and it makes me sad. But hopefully it's a stronger book for it. We'll see. See how it goes.
Yeah, we've gotten some feedback from, it's not really feedback. It's more just perspective. I don't know, Jared, I don't remember if we mentioned it before.
What?
Your mom, when...
Dorinda?
Right at the beginning, very first chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And when Dorinda is killed, his mom was like, "You killed her, that sweet lady. Now she's dead."
Not okay.
Yeah, and we're like, she got really, it was dramatized, but still.
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, people have to get murdered sometimes.
They do. Yeah. That's part of life, I guess.
Yeah.
Especially in stories.
Yeah.
We always got to put them through the bad things.
Yes.
Besides, if you don't kill them all off, then you've got to write their whole story.
I know, right?
True. Yeah. If you give them a name. Now, if you don't give them a name, you can just have them in a scene and then move on. But if you give them a name, generally readers are like, oh, there's something about this person I should know. And then you got to fill it out. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Would it be a cop-out? Maybe it'd be a cop-out if you have... Maybe that's why George R. R. Martin killed so many characters.
Probably hates backstories.
Where he's like, I don't want to write any more about... I don't need another character, but I brought them in. What can I do with them? Well, if they get stabbed in the face. Done.
And done. Yes, moving on.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
House so-and-so. Well, everybody in their house got murdered. Well, I don't have to worry about them anymore.
Yeah,
They're not even on the chessboard.
Yeah, there's no revenge happening. Everybody's gone. It's fine.
Yes, exactly. So, learning with Liz today.
Yes.
You have something you wanted to try out with us today.
Yeah, I want to try something a little different. So when I started my blog, I would give writing advice, and it was just things that I learned along the way. That it was kind of a log for me to remember, to go back and be like, oh yeah, I learned that, and I should make sure I keep applying it or whatever. But anyways, I did this, and I was telling people about it. They'd sign up for my newsletter and get the emails, and I've been getting a lot of good positive feedback on it. Everybody loves it. Which is great. I love that. But it's led to other opportunities I didn't plan on having. I've had people ask me to teach, do workshops, things like that. And so, I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, why not? I love talking about it. So today I wanted to try doing kind of like a live workshop with you guys and kind of show readers how we try and come up with ideas and get things flowing. How we
what a
analyze
workshop
books.
looks like.
Yeah, exactly. And then for any writers out there that are listening or watching, that they can maybe apply it to their own writing and help them with their story.
Yeah. Now you do there's the what is it, Between the Pages. There's the Between the Pages conferences that happen here in Springfield.
Yes.
This would be like if you did a workshop at a conference. This is like a miniature version of what you would do at a conference.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So if you're kind of on the line of like, I don't know if I want to do a conference or not, this would be the kind of thing that you'd usually get. Some of them at conferences, they just do teachings. They'll have a PowerPoint and show. Some of them actually do workshops where they expect you to do exercises with them. I'm a fan of the latter because I like interaction. Yeah. But I've done just plain teaching too. So it kind of depends. But yeah, this is the kind of thing that you get if you go to those conferences and try to pick up new ways to improve your writing.
Yeah. I still need to figure out, a time or how it would work out to go on one of those workshop cruises.
Yes. Doesn't that sound fabulous? Like,
Yeah.
no cell phone service.
Kim does those like a couple times a year, doesn't she?
Yes. KS Brixie. She goes
Yes.
on, I think she's been on a writer's cruise
I
at
know
least
of at least
2 years
two.
in a row, maybe 3. Yeah. But yeah, I was like, that sounds like the dream.
Yeah. Well, and they do, like, from what she describes, there's like active writing. They have like deep sessions where they get in and it's like, okay, you're going to write for 30 minutes. And then we're going to critique and discuss, or all kinds of different, because you're on a cruise,
Yes.
you're on a ship.
Yeah, there's nothing to do. You're going to focus on your work. You're going to bounce off and network with other writers.
Yeah.
They do stop at ports, so you can get off and do something fun, on land kind of thing. But yeah, it's like the dream vacation or workcation, maybe.
Yeah. Like, wait a minute. So what exactly do I have to do here? I write, I discuss my writing, and I eat shrimp.
Yes, exactly.
And there's no limit. I just eat
it's a
it.
tax write-off too.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, oh, this is for work.
And this is my business.
Yeah,
I need to get
exactly.
in that business.
The best thing ever.
We're working on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the future when we have more time and money.
Yes. Okay, so your workshop.
Yes. So
Maybe someday it'll be on a cruise. At the moment,
yeah,
it's here in front of this
maybe
fireplace.
one day I'll get asked to do one on a cruise. I think that would be the dream offer right there.
Yes.
But yeah, so today I want to talk about creating engaging characters that your readers can get behind.
Okay.
Just because I think that's such a big thing. Like, readers generally come to a story for the plot. They read, oh, it's about a spy, or, oh, it's about a wizard, and it's, something interesting, intrigue in the plot.
Yeah.
But when they actually start reading, they stay for the character. That's really what drags them in. And so I think making engaging characters is really important, but often it's kind of vague or complicated. One of the two. Like, people are either like, just write a character we like, or they're like, you got to do all of these things. And so I wanted to kind of go over today a very simple way to do it that I really haven't seen failed yet. So I'm not going to guarantee it will always work, but it's a very high success rate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So creative, or what is it? Creating
Engaging characters.
engaging characters.
Yep. Yes. So whenever you think of your favorite character, when you're trying to figure out what is it that I like about them, it generally falls into 3 categories. They are competent, proactive, and sympathetic.
Yeah.
So competent obviously means that they are skilled. It can mean that they're knowledgeable. It can mean that they're good at something. It's generally like, if you want somebody to do something, you're going to ask this person because they will succeed.
Yeah.
So that's competence. Then you have proactive, which basically means that they're not going to sit back and just let whatever happens. They're going to take action. They've got a plan. They don't generally just sit around and react.
That's probably really loud. But, oh well. For those listening, you get to hear the ice in my cup. Sorry.
Taking a drink. So that's proactive. And then there's sympathetic, which makes it, a lot of people think that means like someone, you can pity someone.
Yeah.
Not really what we're talking about here. We're talking more about likability and relatability of the character. So generally people are going to want to cheer for a person that they can relate to.
It's not do you have sympathy for this character? It's, do you sympathize with this character?
Yeah. It's can you relate? Can you get in their position, and you like them enough to want to kind of live this story next to them?
Gotcha.
So those are the 3 main things that engaging characters have. But they don't have it on the same scale. Like, not every single character you're going to read is going to be great at everything, or not every character you're going to read is going to be super likable or really proactive. So I have them on what I call sliders. So like, you imagine this line from 1 to 5, and you kind of put a slider on there, and you're like, okay, my character is like a 4 in proactive. They're a go-getter. They're going to always chase after what they're looking at. They're going to take action, be a leader. That's just what they're going to do. And then you have their competence. Well, I'm going to slide it to a 2 because they're not super smart. They're going to go for what they need. They're going to be that proactive, but they don't know it right now. They might have to learn it.
Yeah.
And then likability, I might slide it to, a 3 or something and be like, they have their moments where they're really nice, but sometimes they, don't treat people super well. So
Could on the sympathetic and relatable side, is it specific to character traits, as in like, oh, I would like to have a conversation with this person, or does there also play into that sympathy side of I relate to their experiences, and so I like this character because of the things I relate to what they've been through, and so I'm rooting for this character.
Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
So generally, you like someone that you can relate with.
Yeah.
So if you have struggled with, I don't know, losing a dad in the army or something like that, you're not going to like people because they lost their dad.
Yeah.
But you're going to relate to that, and that's going to bring you closer together, and that closeness is something that you're going to like.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you both love Star Wars, that's, again, relatable.
Yeah.
You like something, but it brings you together again. So it can be either way. It's shared experience or just having common characteristics.
Okay. So you might potentially be on the sympathy scale, say like, I really relate to this character's life experiences. So if I were only going by life experiences and how much I relate to how they've what they've been through and how they've reacted to it, I would put them at a 5. But they're kind of a jerk. Mm-hmm. So I don't really
takes them down a notch.
That takes them down a couple. Maybe they're a 3 on the sympathy scale instead of a 5.
Yes. Yeah.
So you get those fluctuations that have to be accounted for.
Yes. And that's the one thing is that you'll have pros and cons to every slider.
Yeah.
Like you don't want your sliders really to be at 1 or 5.
Yeah.
You usually want them kind of in the middle. If, say, you have proactive, if they're on a 1 and they're never going to take action, then your whole story is basically just watching somebody live their life and react to things happening to them. And that makes it a very slow read for the reader because there's no goal we're pursuing. There's no way to look at progression and measure it.
Yeah.
It's just we're sitting here and watching this person react to life. Same thing with competence. If you put them at the very bottom, it's kind of hard to get behind somebody who has never learned anything.
Yeah.
They can be prone to disasters. That's fine. If you want to put them at a 1.5, they have common sense, but they just have really bad luck or whatever. You can do that, and they're just not coordinated. They can't remember things or whatever. That's fine. But you want to make sure that there is a pro to it.
Yeah.
But then if you do the other way, you make it all the way up to 5, you have a know-it-all, and nobody really likes a know-it-all that does everything perfectly.
Yeah.
That's also hard to relate to because everybody has their struggles.
So what about just, I can't think of a character. I'm trying to think okay. Even in real life, but if you have someone they are an absolute go-getter in everything that they do, mm-hmm. but they never develop the skills to be competent at anything because they go after this and then they switch and go after this and then they go after that and then they go after that. And they never, in anything, they try all these different things and they just continually fail because they are incompetent. Mm-hmm. They are not, for whatever reason, they're not able to complete whatever it is you think they should be able to complete. And you're just like, bam.
Yeah. And you can have that. I cannot place it right now. It's on the tip of my tongue, but it's not coming completely to my brain. But it is that idea of you can have that where a character is determined,
yeah,
yet unskilled. And generally they're likable. So you have, I'm determined and I'm likable, but I'm really bad at stuff. It kind of makes a comedy, maybe a satire or something.
As you're describing that, I'm picturing Cousin Eddie from National Lampoon.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And in the end, the climax maybe isn't them learning the skill, or maybe they do learn the skill. Maybe you can push them up from a 1 to a 2 and be like, look, he learned something in the end. But you can also have the ending that's happy and ending, and it's just dumb luck. Yeah. That is why it worked out. And maybe that's that character's skill, is like they're incompetent and everything, but somehow, even though they mess everything up, it works out fine in the end.
I guess maybe Dumb and Dumber.
Yes.
It would be the story of main characters who are ambitious. You're very sympathetic to them, utterly incompetent.
Yes, that is an absolute great example. And now that you say that, the Andy Griffith Show, not Andy, Barney is a great example of this too. Like, he doesn't do anything well, but he is willing and he is, happy to be there. But he messes. And
he takes initiative to do. He's like not going to sit around and be lazy.
Yes, exactly.
Whereas Harry and Lloyd, if they can sit, they would be ambitious toward being lazy.
Yes.
If they can.
Very true. Very true.
But I hadn't thought Barney's a good example.
Yeah.
What about the sympathetic slider?
Yes. So, what do you mean, what about it?
Well, hang on. You said that you don't want a 1 or a 5 in those two categories. What about a villain that you want everyone to hate? Everyone at a 1.
Yes. So, it depends on what kind of villain you're writing. So, there's villains that are relatable. That's really popular right now. Everybody wants to write the villain story, but like you feel sorry for them in the end, or you understand them in the end. And then you have those villains that are just pure evil. And
they're redeemable villain.
Yeah. But the thing is that most villains, you cannot put their competency at a 1. They're usually at a 5, because they have to be super smart. They have to be super proactive in order to get what they want. Villains don't just sit around and wait for something to happen. They are trying to make their plan happen. And they usually have the skill set to do it. That's why they're the villain. That's why they're a threat. So they have to be high on those sliders usually. But on the sympathetic one, you can put them at the very bottom if they're just absolutely evil. Or you can put them in the middle if you want people to understand them, but maybe not agree with their choices.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. I mean, he's not on the sympathetic scale. He's not like a 1 that you hate him. But from the first 2 of a ambitious and competency scale, Dr. Doofenshmirtz from Doofenshmirtz Evil Incorporated.
I don't know that one.
From
he's a 5 on.
He's a definite go-getter.
Yeah, go-getter.
Okay.
But he's about a 2.
It's from
on competency.
Okay.
My brain just glitched. It's from Phineas and Ferb.
Oh.
Phineas and Ferb.
Okay.
Doofenshmirtz Evil Incorporated.
Yes.
But then he's like a 4 on the sympathetic scale because you like him.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's the thing about a lot of kids' villains fiction is that they're usually very proactive. If it's a humorous piece, then they're usually not very competent. You think of, what's the one? Despicable Me.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of competent, but like he messes a lot of things up at the same time. But if they do mess things up, it usually pushes their slider up in the sympathetic version because people can relate to it. They're like, oh, he's worked so hard and he can't get it. Even if you don't want him to achieve whatever it is he wants to achieve, you still feel for that struggle of not being able to get your goal.
Yeah. Another one I was thinking of that would fit into kind of the lower competency scale is Adventure Time. The king, the Snow King, or the Ice King.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen.
I don't
watch
think
Adventure Time.
No.
Yeah, no, I've not seen it.
Okay.
I don't
people
think so.
People who have seen Adventure Time, you'll know what I'm talking about.
That's great.
So he would fit into the. He's not as likable as Doofenshmirtz from Phineas and Ferb, but he kind of fall. I would put him in that category. I think of ambitious. His scale slide. I think it would change episode to episode as far as being sympathetic to liking him up and down. Competency, pretty low.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. So those were just great examples of like how it's the exact same three elements that you're making all of these characters with. You're just moving the sliders around to make different personalities, different levels of engagement. And you're also pulling in different readers. You know, some people want a villain that's pure evil. Some want one that messes up all the time and is humorous. So you're pulling in different readers depending on what they look for in characters and are drawn to.
So from an author perspective, so you'd be if we were at a conference and it was a writers conference, so obviously the people attending the conference and sitting in your seminar and going through this workshop, they would be authors looking to improve what they're writing. So on that sliding scale is the goal to say, well, I'm going to write about, I'm going to have a character Jeff and Mary Sue, and I want Jeff to be a 3 from proactive. I want him to be a 2 in competency and a 4 in likability or in sympathy. And Mary Sue is going to be a 4 and then a 2 and a 2.
Yeah.
And it's like, I got to write to those benchmarks every time they're in the story. I can't make them too competent too early. I can't make them too likable too early or too unlikable.
Yeah. If you want your characters to feel distinct, then you have to have them at different numbers like that. Because if every character in your book is super proactive, super competent, and not very likable, they're going to feel like the same character versus, having that and then someone who's super proactive, super likable, but not very competent.
Yeah.
Then your characters will work together better because they'll balance each other out. Okay, one's likable and one's really smart. So together they can win over who it is they need to win over in order to complete their plan or whatever. So yeah, it's something that you can definitely play with to create the different characters.
How would that work if you're writing? So, like if you're working within a specific realm, say you're working at like you're writing a thriller novel, and the thriller novel you're writing centers around somebody who's a member of this elite investigative team. And so all of the people there have to be competent. They have to be like, they wouldn't be on the team otherwise. So how would you potentially navigate that variation and make it still work? It'd be like, we're going to write a story of people who are astrophysicists. And there's a team of 6 astrophysicists that are trying to figure out this time wormhole that opened up out by Jupiter. And they are these 6 who have to they would have to be geniuses, all kinds of experience, super competent, and relentless at pursuing to try to figure it out. So how would you vary something like that?
Yeah, so that's where I think the different aspects of the story come in. Because they're all going to obviously have their expertise. You'll have one that's good at one thing, one that's good at another, but they might not be good at the same things.
Yeah.
So if you put the one that's good at this over here in this area instead, you're going to show maybe a lower competency for them.
Yeah.
But even that being said, there's going to be different levels anyways. I mean, not everybody is going to have worked 17 years and been in this exact situation and that kind of thing. So like you may have one that maybe has been in this situation before. But then you have the others that maybe have the book knowledge, but haven't actually been in the situation. So they know all the things to do, but they don't know how the experience of it will affect them versus the other one will. So even though they can all be super smart, there's going to be different levels of how competent they are and then what they're competent in. And even if in that situation where you're having this big science thing, you're going to have another side of the story that's a personal aspect. So, maybe one of them is really bad at relationships, or maybe one is, not good at leading, and he has to be the leader of all these geniuses now. So there's going to be other areas of the story where you can show maybe them not knowing everything, but show their differences and make them more distinct.
But you could play with their likability.
Yes.
To show differences as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking of while you were describing that. Have you seen the movie Sphere?
No.
Have you, Jared? Have you seen the movie Sphere? So it's
No.
from, I don't know, late 90s, early 2000s, something like that. It's got several famous or well-known actors in it, and they discover a sphere in the bottom of the ocean, and it ends up being like this alien tech that if you touch the sphere, like something gets into your brain and causes, and they're trapped at the bottom of the ocean. Okay. But the people there are all like multiple PhD scientists and physicists and whatnot, and so you're in that setting. Like I didn't think about that when I posed the question, but now I'm thinking of it.
Yeah.
Or there's another, and they both happen to be at the bottom of the ocean. There's another one I can't think of the name, where The Abyss. That's the other one.
I haven't seen that one either, I don't think.
The Abyss. You guys need to watch more deep ocean movies.
Yes, so.
Same kind of thing. They're studying this. I don't know if it's the Mariana Trench. Is that Mariana? Is that the right word?
Marianas with an S.
Is it Marianas?
Mm-hmm.
That sounds weird. I don't know. Fake news. Whatever it is, the big trench in the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah.
They're studying it and they discover something but it's all people that like, they don't just be like, hey, Joe, you know how to turn a wrench. Come to the depths of the ocean and manage this for us. Mm-hmm. So like everybody there has to be competent at what they do.
Yes.
In both of those stories, there's like just rando person isn't going to work in that location.
Yes. Yeah. They have to be super smart. But again, it's like, where are they smart and
how proactive are they? You can be really smart, really good at your job, but you're kind of lazy.
Well, these are all people that got selected in both scenarios. They were selected to go investigate because they're not just smart, they are experts in their field with a lot of experience. Mm-hmm. In Sphere, like Dustin Hoffman is a psychologist, and he's like, I don't know, psychologist or psychiatrist, one of the two, mm-hmm. but he has a lot of experience dealing with people that have been through traumatic events, people that have spent like time in isolation and stuff like that. And they're like, you are an expert. You've written books on this. You've taught, university doctorate courses on this and stuff. Yeah. And we're putting you down here in the ocean with people who, they're scientists and everything, but you will be utterly cut off, isolated, at a pressure that if you open the door, you'll all get crushed and die.
Yes.
Yeah. So we need somebody whose expertise psychologically can handle mm-hmm. whatever trauma and experience people are going to go through in that environment. So congratulations. Yeah, you're selected to go.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that he's very competent in that situation, but he's probably never actually been in that legit situation. So things are going to come up that he's never faced before, that it's going to challenge him. And
I think he might even, I don't remember for sure, but he might even be like, I don't even know how to swim. And you're like, you're going to the bottom of the ocean. Yeah. There will be no swimming.
Yeah, they say, you try to swim, you'll be crushed.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But so we kind of went deep into one direction there.
Yes,
but I was
yes.
just
literally.
Yeah. Literally into the ocean. Yeah. But yeah, that is a good example of how the dynamics can be super vast or they can be minute, you know, like, yeah, this is a book of really super competent people, but like it's going to be a minute scale of the differences that they have.
Yeah.
Versus, you know, you go to Star Wars, you have Luke. He's very sympathetic, very proactive, not competent.
Yeah.
And then you have Han Solo, not proactive, super competent, like abilities maybe in the middle. So you have kind of these opposites that are thrown together that they have to like kind of rub off on each other and work. So yeah, it just kind of depends on, I guess, the type of story you want to tell.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So now that we've talked all in and around that, one more thing before we move on to the actual exercise. In kind of studying characters on a wide scale, I've looked at kind of all these main characters with these 3 categories and sliders.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, for your protagonist, at least, the main person that you want your readers to get behind, the ratio tends to be you kind of want 2 sliders on the higher scale and 1 on the lower scale. And usually that lower scale is going to be your character arc. You know, if they're not very likable by the end, they will be. If they're not very competent by the end, they would have learned more. If they're not proactive by the end, they're going to realize that they need to take charge. And so generally you do it that way so that you'll have 2 reasons for a reader to get behind them and a third one where they can kind of relate in that journey of how to grow.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the best ratio. So whenever I'm making my characters, I always try to make sure that I have one that's kind of lower that they're going to work on, but then have 2 kind of in the mid to high range. That way you can pull in a bigger audience. You know, if people like to read characters that are really competent and very proactive, then if you do that and maybe they're not very likable, you're going to have a certain type of audience read your book, versus if you have a very sympathetic and proactive character that's not very competent, then you're going to draw in a different group.
Yeah. Are there any, I guess, would an arc work, and I'm trying to think how it would work, to where you could have a character that starts out very strong in all 3 categories and things happen to them that you know, that change the character. And so the arc is they start at one end, swing to the other end, and then come back.
Yes. So I don't know if you guys have read this series or not, the Lightbringer series by Brent Weeks.
I've heard of it.
Okay.
I've been recommended it, but I haven't read it yet.
Okay. So this one, you have a couple different main characters you follow, but one that you follow is you're introduced to him and he is very likable. I mean, like, he does everything he can. He's not like the king, like they don't have a king, but he's kind of in a high position in government.
Yeah.
And he has to lead all these people and he's doing all he can to help him, and he's taking on burdens that he doesn't want to have just to help people. So you very much like him.
Yeah.
He is like the best person with magic in the whole world. So very competent and super smart, has like, I think, a perfect memory recall or something, like very smart person. And he's very proactive. Like, he can't just sit back. He's always trying to find ways to make things better. Like, instead of sending troops out to do something, he goes out and does it himself to save his troops. Like, it's very much like he's just high on everything.
Yeah.
But as the series goes, you kind of see him becoming a little bit more full of himself. So his likability drops a little bit. At one point in time, he starts losing his magic. So his competence goes down because he's so used to being able to do everything the easy way. Now he has to do it the hard way. And it's like he doesn't know how to do anything anymore.
Yeah.
And because of that loss, he gets into depression. So he's not very proactive. He just kind of like is in kind of hanging out, you know, like, okay, my life's over.
Yeah.
Eventually he gets out of that and he goes back up. You know, he becomes more likable, becomes more proactive. So he has that kind of like, we have it all at the beginning and then we lose it. And then it's kind of his struggle to bring back what he can, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I won't give away the ending, but, you know, it is very much that whole like, we're the perfect guy. And there's some mystery about his background that makes you kind of want to know more about him, because it's kind of dangerous writing the perfect person.
Yeah.
Because it's not relatable. Like, people aren't good at everything and always likable, and
It's like making Superman so powerful that it's like, well,
exactly.
one, who could possibly be his enemy?
Yeah.
And two, why is he helping humans to begin with?
Yeah, why does he bother? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you got to be careful when you have that. If you do that, you got to make sure there's another draw. But I always, if you're going to do that, I'd always say you have to throw them in a situation that takes away one of those. So maybe you throw them through a portal and they're in a different world, and their competence level is gone because everything that they know isn't able to be applied anymore.
Yeah.
Or something like that, where it just kind of shakes thing up, so that readers really want to watch the person grow. Because that's the thing. If you start all out on a 5, there's no character arc. And without the character arc, readers don't get as attached to watching them struggle and overcome.
Yeah. Jared, well, I was just thinking of Rick and Morty. There's always a Rick and Morty.
I feel like I need
episode.
to like start watching this or something. You bring it up so often.
So one of the Rick and Morty episodes, Morty gets a pet dragon, and then they have to go into the magic realm because there's issues with the dragon. When they go into the dragon realm, Rick tries to use his science, and the wizard there is like, your science doesn't do anything here. And Rick's like, what about this? He tries to like pull out his phaser or laser gun, whatever, and it's like, doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And then so the wizard is like, magic golem, and the rock golem comes up and is like, and punches Rick, and he smashes into the wall, and he's like, he's like, spinal cord, release morphine. Like, oh my gosh, this is the worst. So then he has to, it takes a very short amount of time, but he has to do everything science-based using all the magic stuff. And he's like, this world is stupid.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and that's a good example of them having to readjust and be flexible.
Yeah.
On the topic of adjusting and flexibility, how much, if any, should these sliders change as your characters develop and evolve?
So I think that depends on your plan for the story. If you're writing one book, you can obviously have them have a greater jump. But if you're writing a series, you probably want to draw it out, because at the end of book 2 of a 10-book series, if they're perfect at everything, it's not going to be so great. But you kind of want to make it realistic too. You don't want to start with like a spy in training, and then by the end of the book, they're the best spy in the company. You want to show that progression, but you want to make it realistic, because again, the sympathetic part, you want to make it relatable. If the character is like, wow, they learn everything perfectly the first time real fast, it's hard to relate to that.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, from an arc perspective, just within the character, do any of these need to change from the beginning of the story to the end in order to write a good story with a good character? Can these 3 things stay the same, and you get to the end of the story and you're like, I still like this character and I like this story, and it still tells a good story and fits the plot?
Yeah, you can. Usually these are the static character arcs. So you think of like Sherlock Holmes. He's very competent, sort of proactive. I mean, like, he's usually searching for a case, but sometimes he's just wallowing in pity, waiting for a case. So it depends. His likability level isn't super high because he's not good with people. So he kind of is a jerk to people sometimes. But he doesn't change too much over time. Yeah. Actually, I think Watson's the one that actually changes. He's the dynamic character arc in that series. But Sherlock kind of stays the same. So you don't have to necessarily play with the sliders. It's an easy way to make a character arc if you want. Like, if you're struggling, how am I going to do this character arc? You come up with these 3 sliders. Okay, we're going to have proactive here, competence here, sympathy here. They're not going to be super competent. So by the end, you know, you think of Harry Potter, he's going to magic school, he doesn't know anything. By the end, we want him to know something. You know, he might not be at a 5, but maybe at a 2 or 2.5, something like that.
Yeah.
And that helps with the character arc. Like, okay, he's going to learn this. And that's kind of more of an external thing. But you know, you get that sense of, for him, it's kind of like the confidence level. Because he's always been told he's nothing, he's not very good, whatever. And so going to this school, learning this thing, and becoming a good student kind of increases his confidence as well. So you have the internal and the external signs of that character arc, but it's all related to competence. So it's an easy way to develop one if you're struggling trying to come up with a character arc for your character.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So let's do exercises because those are fun. So let's pick a few of your guys' characters from your book, and kind of go through these sliders and how they fall and why they fall there, and maybe we can see if that was intentional or not. Kind of look at your team dynamics and how they all mesh together and things. So let's start with the obvious one. Tuara.
Okay.
Okay.
Where would she fall in the proactive slider, do you think?
So this is where I was thinking about this from the proactive perspective, where, you know, we get Tuara wants to be the queen's accolade. So she's taking steps on her own to do that. But then we also get like when she's when she quote unquote confronts Corvin.
Yes.
We get the internal perspective from her that she's hesitant, afraid. She doesn't say what she thinks she should say, you know, and she questions herself and whatnot. So, and there are decisions she makes that intentionally, in some cases, are a little bit, make it easier for her on purpose. Like, you know, confronting people that, like confronting Corvin directly rather than indirectly.
Through the legal means or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would say she's pretty proactive just because she's not very reactionary. Like, yes, when something happens, she reacts to it, but she isn't just sitting around waiting for something to happen to react to it. Yeah. Like you said, she's trying to pursue this accolade position, and yeah, other things happen to her along the way that she reacts to, but she's not just sitting around thinking, oh, it'll happen to me one day, or oh, when will my life begin, kind of thing. Like, she seems like she wants to be that leader. You know, she's taking action. She's trying to help other people follow her in the right direction and things like that. So I would say she's pretty proactive.
I think I could agree with that.
Yeah, I think her, you know, like you said, in her own mind, her lack of confidence, and is she doing what's right? Is she confronting him the right way? Whatever. That falls more into the competence level.
Yes.
Where even though she may seem competent outwardly, because she does confront him,
yeah,
she's not actually really that good at what she's doing. She's
good at portraying the image.
Yeah.
But as far as her actual knowledge and skill level and experience in the world, it's not very high.
Yeah.
Yeah. She has a lower competence level.
Well, and I guess we do see there's two perspectives that we see specifically talking about Tuara in the story coming from other characters. One is, there's one of our chapter headers is from Duchesne, the guy who does the sword training with her. And in that journal entry from him, that's our chapter header, he describes that Tuara is exceptional at her ability to pick up what he's trying to teach her. That she has the potential to become a great swordmaster.
Yes.
If she would stop hesitating and stop holding herself back and second guessing herself.
Yes.
And then we also see from Athandra's perspective, when Athandra is teaching Tawara and or after Duchesne dies,
Mm-hmm.
and Athandra is considering, or no, was it after? At some point,
Sounds
at
good.
some point early on, Athandra is like trying to teach Tawara and trying to build this connection with Tawara.
Mm-hmm.
And she makes the decision about, like, she recalls Corvin not wanting her to hold Tawara back and dissuade her from becoming an acolyte, that this is a pathway she shouldn't go down.
Yes.
And Athandra makes the decision that I think Tawara is competent, she is capable of doing this. And again, she explicitly says, if she will get out of her own way.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, and I think a lot of that is like she's competent. Tawara is competent in the aspect of like knowledge and just innate skill, like, you know, the swordsmanship and that kind of thing. But her experience level is so low that the competence isn't really there. It's like she knows it, but she hasn't done it enough for it to be natural for her to be confident in the fact that she can do it.
She has the aptitude.
Yes. There we
And
go.
she has desire and pursues things, but she's also sheltered, naive, and has been manipulated and emotionally abused most of her life.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
She's also stubborn.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, she is. But yeah. So, okay. So proactive, we'll give her like a 4, and competence, maybe a 2. So what do you think about sympathetic?
That's one on her that she starts out kind of, I think, low a little bit. She's arrogant.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, she's stubborn. But I think that's one of the parts of her character arc that evolves quite a bit to where she becomes less arrogant, more willing to rely on other people.
Yeah, she does have, like, we talk about that explicitly as well. Trust issues and being able to trust other people.
Yes.
But she's proactive, and her aptitude is high enough that she wants to depend on herself, but she's not competent enough to wholly. She's writing, to quote Hot Shots, the movie, her ego's writing checks that her body can't cash.
Yeah.
Yes. Very true. Yeah. But she also has the likable side. I mean, like, she's very fun-loving, and funny, and, well, and in her own way. Obviously, she doesn't do slap-happy kind of stuff, but, you know, it's just very cheery all the time and things like that, and the free spirit, and I think that makes her very likable as well. People can kind of get behind that and be like, yeah, you know, I like this girl. We'll wait for her to figure out how to interact with people better and get out of her own way.
Yeah, so maybe a 4-3-3 at this point, at least at this point in the book.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So what about her companion, Athandra? Where would you put her on the proactive scale?
Athandra's a little different.
Yeah.
But partially because, like, we're coming at it from the perspective of, we know all her background and her history and
we're
where she
talking
came
about
from.
Beginning, well, I'm not going to say beginning of book 1 because she's not introduced till the middle of book 1, but, you know, when we first meet her, where is she on the proactive slider?
I think she would have to fall into the proactive scale. Well,
Yeah.
and we see that she's actively trying to find ways to reach Tawara.
Mm-hmm.
And she obviously she's pursued schooling, even with the push of her parents, she's gone beyond that. And then she's even gone beyond to go into, like, rebellious territory to explore things on her own.
Yes.
Which is what gives her, the flip side to that, the competency to be in the position that she's in.
Yeah, we also see, you know, her own aspirations. You know, I'm going to ride Tawara's, you know, rise to power. And, that's, so I need to be behind Tuara and I need to push Tuara, which is a very proactive kind of thing.
Yeah, she does seem like she has a goal and she's gonna go for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what number would you put her at between 1 and 5?
I'd say at least a 4.
Yeah. She's not a 5.
No, she's not like,
because she also is fun loving and free spirited and is okay with
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So competence level, we already said she's a little bit more than Tuara.
Yeah.
Where would you think she falls on that one?
Well, I said 4.33 on Tuara. I meant 4.23.
Okay. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
I'd say
I'd give her a 4 on competence as well.
maybe a 3,
Well,
a 3.5,
yeah.
because she's competent at what she's doing now
Right.
from an instructor perspective, and assisting Tuara and coming up with this, trying to connect to her. It's what she does.
Yes.
But like, she doesn't know how to ride a horse, even though she thinks she does. She doesn't know how to properly use a sword. And like, there are areas where she's not competent.
Yeah. And
part of it is
find more
because,
those
like,
later.
It's almost like dismissive. Like, not interested in that, so I don't care about it.
Yeah. Yep. She's got another area. She may have the experience and the book smarts of, the big things going on in the world, but the smaller things, she goes right over her head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we see she's willing to, the way she connects with Tuara is, we're going to go ride horses.
Yes.
And we're going to use that. She's going to use that as a tool.
Proactive. Yeah. She's
to be proactive, even though she's terrible at it. And just,
yeah.
trying not to break her neck riding the horse.
That's a good thing. Okay. So 4-3. So sympathy. Where does she fall in that?
I think she's fairly likable.
I think fairly likable. We've talked about, we get, it'll show up a little more in book 2, but we do get a little bit of her background, her hopes, her dreams, her fears, her aspirations, that I think that readers will connect with. And even like her fears in, well, what's going to happen, and the fact that she ties herself to Tuara explicitly, of, I'm going to encourage her, I'm going to go against what Corvin asked me to do, I'm not going to, rather than dissuade her from being an accolade, I'm going to openly encourage her, with the knowledge that if she fails, it will likely mean my demise.
Yes.
Yeah. But at the same time, at the point we're at right now, if we're going off of that, she's a little sterile. Yes, she likes to have fun, but she's the teacher. She's, she wants to be the friend, but she's not there yet.
But we see, what is it? Her, like, when she's been in the book for within 3 chapters, we get from her perspective, her desire to help Tuara, the creative ways she tries to come up with to help her, and the struggles she has in making that connection. And then we get, Duchesne, the youths are killed. And we get immediate mourning with Tuara for her loss, even though they barely know each other. It's been 1 day.
Yeah.
They barely know each other. And then it's been weeks now that they've been training together and studying together, and Duchesne is killed. And when she goes into her room and, like, helps her, gets her into bed, and she's like, Tuara's like in shock.
Yeah.
And what does Athandra do? She crawls into bed with her and holds the princess who's weeping and, distraught. So I think and granted, she does feel bad in that scene when she's comforting Tuara. she has the thought of, and she says she feels guilty about it, has the thought of, how close can she get to Tawara that will help her rise to power?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we still see the flaws in her, but I think it's relatable.
Yes. Yeah. She's very kind-hearted, but most people are going to have a selfish thought at some point in time in their life.
Yeah.
So it's something that you can relate with, even if you don't like it about her, you can still relate with it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So 4-3, where are we putting the last one? Sympathy.
I'd say up in the 3 to 4 range.
Yeah, 3 to 4.
3 to 4. Okay.
It's on the positive side for sure. I
Okay.
think.
All right. So we have Tawara and Athondra, and they're kind of companions. And looking at their sliders next to each other, you can kind of see where they're similar. They're both very proactive. They both seem to have this similar ability level, although Tawara is maybe a little bit lower. But they also kind of equal each other out if you think about it. At the competency level, Tawara, it has the basic knowledge that Athondra is missing. Athondra has the experience that Tawara is missing. And so they kind of complete each other or teaching each other as they go.
So while they're teaching, Athondra would be like, you complete me.
Yes. Yes. And on the sympathy level, I think they kind of work well together too, because it's the only reason we really sympathize with Athondra seems to be because of how she handles Tawara. That's the only interaction we really get to see with her. Otherwise, the only information we have on her is the fact that Corvin hired her. So you automatically think, oh, she's a bad guy. The bad guy hired her, obviously. She's bad too.
Tawara thinks that.
Yes, and that's the perspective we get it from. So we're going to be biased towards her, oh, this is what she thinks, therefore we think. But you have that, and then she's constantly trying to rein in Tawara and all this kind of stuff. So you kind of are like, I don't know. But because Tawara is so bad with people, you think about the first interaction they had. Tawara was awful to Athondra. And Athondra continued to work with her anyways. So it kind of has that push and pull of the sympathy slider just between the two of them.
Yeah. Which
is cool. So, okay, well, we have to do the villain because that's fun. So let's do Corvin. Proactive level. Where would we put him?
Corvin's he's 4.5.
Yeah, he's
extremely proactive.
He's relentless.
Yeah.
Yes, determined beyond belief.
Yes. Yeah. Just in, I'm trying, do we have any from Corvin's perspective before? We haven't gotten to the end of the book reading it yet.
Okay, well, maybe not.
Well, no. Yeah.
Don't do any spoilers.
Well, yeah, so Corvin, we already see that he plots and he plans.
Mm-hmm.
And then he subplots and backup plans. And we see that he wins people over, he recruits people to his side. We haven't gotten into the means that he does that.
Mm-hmm.
But from a proactive perspective, when Captain Ethrin when Captain Ethrin finds Tawara,
yes,
and they're riding back together from the Crescent Valley,
mm-hmm,
and Captain Ethrin and Tawara are talking about Corvin, and then he said, is it there or is it in the in Wretched Jurisprudence when Tawara talks to Ethrin, when he says, Corvin has supplanted some of my power.
mm-hmm.
He's supplanted Tessera. He is like the sole source of he has your father's ear. And he says, but I have nearly I still have nearly as much power as Corvin,
Yeah.
and I have an iron will. So, like, I'm going to stand up against him where I can.
Yeah.
But he clearly explains Corvin has been able to put his fingers, he has taken over the entire house guard, which are supposed to fall under Captain Ethern's purview as a captain of the Western Guard. Like, they're all supposed to be his men. They're not. They're Corvin's men.
Yeah.
So Corvin has his own set of men. He has the Baron's ear. He's supplanted Tessera, and we see that even further with bringing Athandra in. And he's able to be kind of a block between Captain Ethrin and the Baron. It takes a lot of
Yeah.
determination, planning, and perseverance to put yourself into that position.
Yes. Yes, it does. So, which that leads us into the competence slider. He's got to be pretty competent to do all that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's been able to pull everything off so far.
And keep it out of the eye of the Baron.
Yes.
True. Yeah. Nobody's calling him out on it yet.
Yeah.
Well, except for Tuara, but she doesn't have the smarts to trap him yet. So.
Yeah. Well, and even when Tawara confronts him, you know, and he says, you're reacting with emotion. And then he's like, well, do you have a writ of arrest? Do you have anything to, like, you're just here yelling. I'm here with dignitaries, you know, or with the leaders of the city, and you barge in and you're yelling and acting all emotional.
Yeah.
Or is anything that you have to come in other than you're upset? And so if you apply that same perspective to when he talks to, like, when he has a conversation with Tessera about bringing Athandra in.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I already have somebody lined up because I knew this, or I expected this day would have inevitably come. And then Tessera reacts. And again, he's like, well, you already said yourself, you need somebody who can watch her because you can't. You're not physically capable of it. She's beyond your ability to control.
Yeah.
So he immediately, it's like, it's never his fault.
Thinking 3 steps ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So sympathy slider. Where does he fall on that one?
He's not so hot on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody who's read our book and talked to us about Corvin, like, without exception, has been like, I hate that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think when I read it the first time, it was the scene where her and the sword master are fighting, and then he comes out and wants to duel her. That's where I lost it. Beforehand, it was kind of like, oh, this guy's a jerk, and, you know, he's stuck up, and, you know, whatever. But like, that scene was just drove home just how unlikable he is, and I was like, yep, you are a bad person.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get that. So yeah, so your villain follows the typical villain slider, you know, high proactive, high competence, low likability.
Yeah.
Which there's nothing wrong with that. That's the way it works really well that way.
Yeah.
Because it makes it a very powerful character for your heroine to overcome, while also not making him the character everybody likes. So,
Yeah.
which is important. So.
But one of the things that I think, you know, when we're writing Corvin, when you're reading Corvin, and as we're talking about him, it's like, how could somebody that we as the readers see this person, we're like, oh, even writing him, we're like, such a jerk. So but how is he even there? How does everybody not see it?
Yeah.
And we see that when he sits down with Captain Ethrin, and Captain Ethrin says, hey, Corvin, here's this thing. And Corvin gets mad and then is immediately able to be like, okay, Captain. And Captain Ethrin comments that, like, from a skill and ability to manipulate people, he's like, they're on par. He think we get his perception that yes, he has an iron will. He's worked his way up to this position. He has power in the realm. But when it comes to the ability to move the pieces on the chessboard and play, he is not a match for Corvin.
Yeah, because
And
Corbin can do it without feeling. Like, he's very analytical.
Yeah, and he can just do it, and so that automatically, it may not win him a lot. And I think Ethrin says that, like, it doesn't win him a lot of friends, but he doesn't need friends.
Yeah.
To be able to do what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
He just needs to be able to, pull off the favor or accomplish the task or do whatever and be in people's good graces. He doesn't go around offending everybody.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have to be their friend.
He doesn't need friends, he needs allies.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Someone to kind of help him when he needs it, and then that's it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But not from from his perspective, it's not even from a, like, oh, I'm just going to use them up until they're not any good and chuck them out, because he's smart enough to know, keep people happy.
Yes. Yeah. He knows how to play people.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, very good. Yeah. So that would be kind of like a typical workshop for conferences, or I don't know where else you would get it. Sometimes libraries have them and stuff. But yeah, where it's just fun to kind of look at a story from a different perspective and then do some exercises, and you get to examine your own characters and, like, okay, how do they mesh together? Does this work? Do I have two characters that are too similar?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. It's also fun to, once you've written multiple stories, so not necessarily multiple books, although if you have a ton of characters, you could maybe do it over multiple books, like if you have one series. But when you're creating multiple characters, there's a lot of people get in a rut of what kind of character that they want to make. Like, they really love that, proactive kid that is really likable, but he can't do anything right.
Yeah.
And so every single time they write a story, their protagonist is that type of character.
Yeah.
Which works sometimes. There are readers that will always come out because they love this type of character. But it can also kind of make your reading feel stagnant or not your reading, your writing feel stagnant. So that's something else you can kind of look at as you start writing multiple stories. You can look back and be like, am I stuck in a rut with a specific kind of character? And how can I switch it up to give my readers a fresher story?
Yeah. Yeah, I can, thinking of just the world of characters that you can go to that just exist out there in the millions of pages of storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many different character arcs and character styles that you can delve into. I like the Wheel of Time, and the way Robert Jordan wrote the youths, like, they were youths.
Mm-hmm.
They were not like little kids. They didn't act like babies. They didn't act younger than they should have.
Yeah.
They were trying to come of age and made a lot of mistakes, like they were teenagers.
Yeah.
And it showed throughout, but it also, like, you get in some of them, like Rand, you get this hard edge that builds into him because of his experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, you get this, he goes in and out of, like, who he can trust and trying to do everything on his own and avoid responsibility at all costs, throughout the whole story. So you get these dynamics of these different characters. Mm-hmm. But then looking at, like, the Malazan books, the characters in the Malazan Book of the Fallen series
mm-hmm.
are those characters. A lot of them have, like, such depth and unique personalities from character to character that it's, I guess to contrast, as much as I like the youths in the Wheel of Time, you then shift over to the warders. And I'm like, every warder can't be the best sword blade master that's ever existed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, 'cause they can't all be the blade masters.
Mm-hmm.
Like, one of them has to be, you know.
Better than the others.
And even when they showed like some of them are really fat, some of them are thin, whatever. I guess that's one thing that like gets me in some stories, and Wheel of Time wasn't an exception to that, is that you have some characters that you're like, well, wait a minute. How you wrote them, like they're foppish and sloppy and fat and but then they pick up the sword and now they're like the best sword fighter that's ever existed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute. That's not how like physical prowess works.
Yeah. I was gonna say, your competency level can't change depending on if there's a sword in your hand or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, which there are times in life where people can do things that you don't expect, or their competency or who they are, whatever is, you're like, well, I didn't expect that at all. Mm-hmm. That's one of the flaws that I saw from in the Wheel of Time, is that like all warders were the best. But then when you saw them in their daily, you're like, wait a minute. Some of these guys are like fat and lazy and stupid, but somehow they're also the best.
Yeah.
And then you have Lan, that he's a warder, but he's like a different type of warder. And he's the absolute best at all the things.
Everything. Yeah. His competency is at like a 10.
Yeah. On a scale of 1 to 5, he's a 10.
Yeah.
In what? Yes.
Yeah. Pretty much, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of what's fun is that there's so many characters out there, and there's different personalities. You're talking about how there's just so many characters that you can create, and that's true. Like there's so many different personalities. But as far as how engaging they are to the reader, you can narrow it down to these 3 things, and then you can use that to dissect it, like you did with the Wheel of Time, and being like, well, why did this upset me? Oh, it's because, Robert Jordan started with the slider on a, 2 for competency, and then when you give him a sword, he slides it up to 5, and then he slides it back down to 2 when they drop the sword, and that inconsistency kind of drives readers nuts because they're expecting, okay, this is competency, and after a while they may grow or they may not. They're not expecting it to go up and down depending on the situation.
Yeah. So that is the perfect example of why I even if I like reading the story as it goes, like the course of the journey, there are a lot of like the hero stories or the chosen one stories that I disliked when it gets to the end, because I'm like, well, wait a minute, they're the chosen one, but this is why, like with Luke Skywalker, they made Luke Skywalker a really good chosen one character, because he faced his father too soon, got his hand chopped off.
Yep.
All these things, just crap after crap, and he went through the ringer.
Yes. Until
he came back as, I am this good now, because I've been through everything to get there. Yeah. I'm also facing somebody who's significantly older and half machine.
Yeah.
There's that.
A little advantage.
Whereas there are so many chosen one shows where they have the villain that is, on the proactivity scale, they're a 5. And competency scale, they're a 5. Likability, they're a 1, a 2. They're really low. You hate these bad guys, but they are competent.
Yeah.
They are the best, because they've made themselves be the best in order to pull off their villainous schemes. And the chosen one comes along, and the chosen one competency is still at like a 2. But they win not because their competency suddenly goes up, but because they're like, no, my will is strong enough that it can overcome my entire lack of competency, and I win,
Yes. Yeah, that magic ingredient that made them the hero, like the chosen one. It's because they have that special something or other that gives them the extra oomph, and you're like, but what is that special thing? And they're like, oh, well, he's the hero. And I'm like, well, yes, but like, what is it?
Yeah.
So yeah, Yeah, that's the misusage of the slider. It's like, all right, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. We hit the climax. Oh, like, let's move it up to a 5. We'll move the villain down to a 4 so we can beat him. Okay, there we go. We're done.
Yeah.
And they're like, no.
And they do that in a lot. There's a lot of
Yes.
books and movies and shows and everything that it happens that way. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
you just ruined it.
Yeah. And that's why I really like the stories where, like, they have that, you know, he's working real hard, and he's going to face up on the guy, and then he loses. Like, to me, that's just amazing because you don't expect it because you expect it to work out. But then it also does show the realisticness of, like, you got a long way to learn it, you know, and then eventually you can beat him, you know, like Luke does with his father kind of thing. Like, it's, you know, you thought you had it, you didn't, but, like, now you do kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's always a great way to do it.
Yeah.
If you have multiple books. Or you could do it, I guess, at the climax and then, or at the midpoint and then make the climax him beating it. But yeah, either way, it's nice to have that fail in there.
And it's okay if you're like, well, this person is so competent and confident that they've been the villain and successful for so long that this level of arrogance has put up a blind spot to this one thing.
Yes.
And it took me this fail and fail and fail. And then I figured out, oh, wait, here's a blind spot. And if I get the exact moment for that blind... So the movie Cinderella Man with Russell Crowe. I'm like, one, he wasn't incompetent.
No.
But he's going against somebody who's younger than him, bigger than him, stronger than him, you know, and he watches and he waits. He's like, I have to time it at just the right moment. And I'm putting myself at extreme risk because if I mess up, he might kill me.
Yeah.
But when he goes to do this every time, he has this opening when he goes to finish the person off when he thinks they're done. Mm-hmm. And it ends up like killed one boxer, puts other guys in the hospital, you know, makes them brain dead, whatever.
Yes.
He goes to do, and he's like, I have to wait. I have to put myself in such a position to get him to do that. And when he goes to do it, that's his blind spot. He's so arrogant and he's used to winning that's when I can react. But he recognized it.
Yeah.
And he had to put himself intentionally into this threatening position where risk of loss and failure is very high. Mm-hmm. But it's not like, oh, out of nowhere, magic appeared and saved me.
Yeah.
You know?
I've become, all of a sudden, the best one in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So, yeah, just that scale, keeping those scales intact, or having the slides on your scale in the position where they should be in the point of the story that you're at.
Yes.
If your character has arced to this point on the scale, they can't suddenly, you know.
Yeah.
And I guess if they're in D&D and they find a charisma charm that boosts their charisma
Yes.
by like plus 100, you know, whatever. Like, suddenly I'm likable to everybody just by walking into a room.
Say the sympathy one is the one that might be like if you have a person you really hate and then you figure out a backstory that makes him understandable. But even then, like, it doesn't usually significantly increase the likability just because you know why they are what they are. Like, he still has to change in some way to make himself better.
Yeah.
And put that into practice now kind of thing. So yeah, there's really no slider where you could just like hit button and be like, today I'm going to be proactive. Like, I was lazy all day yesterday and absolutely nothing happened different today, but today I'm going to go after my goals. And you're like, no, there was a trigger, you know?
You have to have your Ebenezer Scrooge moment.
Yes. Yeah. You got to have all of those ghosts visit you.
Yes.
So, but yeah, that's definitely a big part of it is keeping those sliders realistic levels and progressing if that's what you want it to do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, very cool. Is there anything else from this event? We're in your meeting room. We've done our exercise. So what would you tell us? Okay, the seminar's over, guys. So I want you to take action, blah, blah, blah. what's the blah, blah, blah for us
Yeah.
to take?
So take your current work in progress and I would pick 3 people, kind of like what we did today, to really think about. Like you may have already sat down and like we already characterized them all out. And then I did it a little bit with Athandra and Tuara, but like take them and put them together and see what those dynamics are. Because that's really important too. If you have characters that are all the same, it may get confusing for your reader to tell them apart. But you also are avoiding a potential for tension.
Yeah.
Because if you have someone who's very competent and someone who's very incompetent and they have to do a task together, there's going to be a lot of butting of heads because the competent person is going to be annoyed with the incompetent person and be like, why can't you just do this? I just want to do this whole thing. And so you have that interpersonal journey that makes it interesting, as well as the external journey of we got to complete this task.
Yeah.
So seeing how your main characters kind of fit together, you get your hero, their sidekick, and the villain, or whatever.
Yeah.
Or you can do the 2 love interests, you know, the guy and the girl, whatever you want to do with it. But looking at those together will help you see kind of maybe where your story is at fault for interpersonal stuff that you can maybe do a little bit better with.
Yeah.
So I would definitely do that. You take 3 people, kind of the main ones of your story, figure out their sliders, and then compare them and see where you have a potential to improve or change to make the story better.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
So we have some homework to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys got a lot of characters. You're going to be up all night doing this.
Just one night, I think.
Yeah, maybe more than that.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we'll have to take and apply, see where things are. We're still editing, as we said at the beginning, going back to
Yes.
editing never ends.
It doesn't. Yeah, by the time you get one book done, you have another book already written. You got to edit that one while you write another book. So yeah, it's just a cycle.
Yep.
So it
Just keeps going.
does. Yeah. So
Okay. Well, we'll see if this drives any editing for us. Hopefully we'll be like, everything's perfect. It's great. We don't have to change a darn thing.
this is awesome. Yeah, very much so.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming today. Thanks for doing a seminar with us.
Yeah.
It was fun.
No problem. Yeah, it is fun. And if you are listening or watching and think this is cool and want to look into it, or you want to have a written version of it, I do have a blog post up about it on my website, lizverity.com. You just go to the little search bar and put in engaging characters or something like that. I think that's what I named it.
Yeah.
But anyways, you can look at I have a breakdown of the sliders, and then I also give the example with Harry Potter. It's a really good one because you have the 3 main characters and they're all at different parts of the scale. So she does a really good job with the way they work together. So it's a good one to learn from.
Okay. And if someone goes to your website and they sign up for your newsletter, will they do you have some of this characterization, engaging characters that you send out as well?
So I don't have. So if you sign up for the newsletter, you'll get the writing advice emails. Well, depending on which one. I have 2. You can sign up for the writing advice emails or the author newsletter, or both.
Both. Sign up for both.
Both, yeah. So the writing advice is just going to be my writing advice, whatever I'm learning about at that point, I'll be sharing. The newsletter just kind of gives you, it's a quarterly one. It just gives you an update on my writing and what I'm doing and how the progress is going. So you'll get those whenever it happens. But if you want a actual handout for this engaging characters worksheet, I do have one of those. It's not going to automatically send to you though. So you can go to my contact page on my website and then just send me a little note that says, hey, I listened to the Creators Guild podcast, really loved this. I'd love to have the handout. And I can email it to you.
Perfect. So go do that. LizVerity.com.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Sign up and send her a note and get a worksheet so you can improve your writing.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. Well, thanks again. It's been a pleasure having you with us today.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for listening. And Till next time, go in good spirits. Thanks for listening to the Creators Guild podcast. Don't forget to get your copy of A Flight from Shadows, available on Amazon. While you're there, please rate it and give it a review. If you like the Creators Guild, please like and subscribe, and make sure to share it with your friends. Until next time, go in good spirits.